What's going on, friends? Welcome to week 5 of the UBLs. Today we are going up against none other than my boy HeraHorde and his SL Banefica. I'm so sorry guys, but I feel literally so nauseous right now. Just such unfortunate timing for me to be recording this video, and I just drank a whole water bottle and I'm so parched. So bear with me as we get through this video, but I promise it'll be worth watching, as we did have a pretty good battle against HeraHorde and his SL Banefica. So going into this matchup, obviously we're on a 2-game winning streak, so we really wanted to keep that up, especially against a coach who not only has the draft quality of HeraHorde, as he was one of the top 2 coaches I think in power rankings, and he's very much so has backed that ranking up by has he lost? I actually let me check the documentation. Has up until this point, oh yes, he's lost 1 game, and that was to Sirhawker, who I don't think has lost a game at all, Danekii Sirhawker. So HeraHorde's doing really well this season, and we want to be the ones who are able to knock him off of his little small streak, and just his team doing so well, and hopefully be able to, or at least be able to put up a really good fight and give him a run for his money. So that's what I was hoping for going into this matchup. And I'm not going to do a whole even like small dedication to a team builder, because of the fact that I feel like either I do a team builder video or I don't. So we're just saying screw it, we're just going with the video, we're just going with the battle, and we'll run with it. I will go over the Pokemon I brought, and I will go over his entire team and exactly what I was thinking with my sets considering his entire team. So HeraHorde's team is going to consist of Blacephalon, Excadrill, Haxorus, Celebi, Vaporeon, Slurpuff, Braviary, Gigalith, Liepard, Zebstrika, and Mega Heracross. So looking at my opponent's team, obviously things that jumped right off of his, that jumped right out of me right away were Blacephalon, Excadrill, Haxorus, and Mega Heracross. Those 4 were kind of like, okay, I gotta have a plan for those ones so that we don't just get mollywopped. His team has a lot of very strong threats, but then it has really good defensive synergy as well. So definitely a really well built team, and I commend him for being able to draft a team so well. So I kind of went into the match trying to make sure I had a plan for all of those, but to an extent, maybe not the smartest idea, because of the fact that he had to bring defensive threats. So more so, I should have probably more so predicted which ones I thought he would bring, rather than trying to have a plan for all of them, because those Pokemon are way, all those 4 Pokemon are way too good. Heracross, Mega Heracross, Haxorus, Excadrill, and Blacephalon, they're all way too good. It's pretty hard to try to have a plan for all of them. You can end up kind of having an ineffective plan for all of them when you try to plan for each and every one of them when it comes to your defensive threats. But either way, guys, let's hop into the team I decided to bring. So first off on the team, we do have Shazam, aka Helios. Pretty much what I was thinking with Helios was his only ground Pokemon is Excadrill, and he can't really risk bringing in Excadrill on a surf. Obviously, I kept in my mind the entire time that maybe his Excadrill can be Scarf, and he'll just bring it in on my Volt Switch and not be too concerned. But I just saw Vaporeon as every time that's to switch in for Helios, because I felt pretty strongly in the fact that Vaporeon would be running a set of Wish, Protect, Toxic, and Scald. So I was like, Helios gets in on Vaporeon every single time and is able to put off immense pressure, as I can also, if I can keep my rain up a lot more than he can keep his sand up, then I can also go for thunders and stuff. Maybe not the smartest idea. I probably should have just ran Thunderbolt in this one, considering that this battle was going to be a weather war, and I knew going into this battle would be a weather war, so trying to bank too much on thunders and stuff may not have been the smartest idea. But either way, I rolled with it, because I was like, if I have the rain up and Vaporeon's, and I get Helios in, and I start going for thunders, that's going to chunk. That's going to be able to chunk Celebi if it wants to switch in. It's going to chunk whatever wants to switch in on his team, and it's going to do a lot of damage. So that's what I was excited for. I thought Helios was one of our main offensive threats in this game, because of the fact that it gets in on Vaporeon so easily and literally isn't threatened at all by it. So I definitely wanted to throw Helios on the team very easily, so that's why we got Shazam leading out the team. Next is Lurantis, and Lurantis I actually added at the end of the team, but either way, Lorantis, I had to bring because I didn't really have any other switch-ins for Excadrill. You guys are going to see, though, I did forget that Synthesis. I completely forgot that Synthesis doesn't, it heals back negligible health, very small amount of health if Sand is up, and I completely forgot about that. Either way, though, I don't really own a switch-in for an Excadrill, so Excadrill is a huge threat for my team, so I just saw Lorantis as a way to maybe mitigate how much offensive pressure Excadrill was able to put on my team, at least early game. So I knew he wouldn't really run X Scissors. That would just hurt his overall ability to run Rock Slide for Pelipper, Iron Head for Clefable and just good coverage, and then Earthquake for Heliolisk and anything else ground weak. So yeah, pretty much that's the only reason I brought Lorantis, was so it could switch it into Excadrill, and then also for Defog, because I'm not running Defog on Pelipper. I just don't really like Defog on flying types, so also ran Defog just so that rocks didn't become a huge issue for my team, because Kingdra's not frail, but it's not bulky, and Heliolisk is definitely frail, so I didn't want them just getting weakened by rocks a lot, even obviously as it was mainly for Pelipper, making sure Pelipper didn't have to switch in too much on rocks, considering that I knew that it would be a weather war and I would need to switch in Pelipper a lot. But yeah, either way, we needed to make sure that we had some type of hazard removal, and Lorantis brought hazard removal and a switching into arguably my opponent's most offensive threat to my team. Next, we brought Kingdra, aka what name did I give Kingdra? I can't even remember the nickname I gave Kingdra in this game. Either way, though, Kingdra, Kingdra, aka Neptune, and then Lorantis, aka Orchid. Anyways, Neptune, obviously, I didn't really like Swamperd's matchup in this one. Something was completely throwing me off about Swampert, and Selby to an extent. Let me look at my opponent's entire team again. Yeah, Selby was throwing me off with my opponent's team, and a few other things, like I wasn't liking the way Swampert was looking against my opponent's team, and I knew that I kind of needed other Pokemon, and I could only take one Rain Sweeper, and I thought that Kingdra just had the better matchup when it came to being a Rain Sweeper, especially just because I really didn't like Swampert against Vaporeon. Like, Kingdra obviously doesn't want to have to go for a Draco Meteor just to get off a lot of damage and then just allow Vaporeon to Wish protect that all back. But I really didn't like Swampert against it, because even at +1, if I go for like a Power Up Punch, like a very bulky, physically Vaporeon is still able to tank that out very well. So I didn't like the idea of that at all. Unfortunately, this meant that I brought a team full of special attackers, but not a huge issue. We can manage through it. Just I wasn't liking Swampert's matchup at all. And maybe I needed to go more hyper offensive in order to feel comfortable using Swampert. Then at the end of the day, if I went too hyper offensive, my team relies on the weather, and my opponent does have his own weather, so it could have also just have turned out to be something that didn't really work too well. But Kingdra puts off a lot of offensive pressure on my opponent's team. Even outside of rain, it's still able to put on a lot of offensive pressure. And then I run an interesting move in Yawn. You'll see that be used. So really interesting Kingdra set, and well, just one little move was a little interesting, but overall, just thought Kingdra from the special end had a better matchup, especially when my opponent's main switch in is Vaporeon. So not too bad. Definitely felt like Kingdra was the call on this one. Next is going to be Goodra, and Goodra is going to be rocking out with a Goodra was just going to be my bulky, specially defensive, like super bulky on the special end. We'll check to Blacephalon, because otherwise Blacephalon was able to do like heaps of damage, especially with a Scarf, able to do way too much damage to my opponent's team if it got like that +1 boost. However, as you can see, he didn't bring Blacephalon, so that definitely dampened my my mood when it came towards the fact that I brought this Goodra set, because it was very especially defensive bulky, and the only special threats I see on this team is possibly Slurpluff, possibly Celebi, because Celebi can also still be ran physically, and then Vaporeon, which I didn't even think would be running Ice Beam. So yeah, definitely a little unfortunate circumstance there with Goodra, as I definitely would have invested a lot more in physical bulk if Blacephalon wouldn't have been brought. But it just made sense for him not to bring Blacephalon because Goodra's such a good check to it, and considering that I have Rain, so probably not the wisest idea on my end to completely bank that he would still bring it. Especially with me also having a normal type in Healwhisp, so he can't really spam the fire type move or Rain, and he can't really spam the ghost type move with Healwhisp. So definitely something I just completely oversighted, and it would have been better if I would have just invested more in defense so I could take defensive hits a little bit better. Anyways, though, that's pretty much Goodra, just to be a huge special defensive wall, hit hard with Thunder on Vaporeon, Sludge Bomb for the Celebi and Slurpluff, and then Draco Meteor just to kind of nuke anything that wants to come in. And I think I threw Acid Armor on it again, I'm not completely sure. And then next, anyways, is going to be Clefable, and Clefable is going to be rocking out with leftovers and fully physically bulky, 252 in HP, 252 in defense with a bold nature. Like, I needed to be able to take on that Mega Heracross, which also wasn't brought, and that is why exactly I did that. I also can live an Iron Head, which is kind of interesting, especially since I have Fire Blast, which probably should have just been Focus Blast, but either way, it meant I was running a low accuracy move, and I just went with the one that had a little bit better accuracy, but that meant that I can't really go for it in Rain, though, so Extra is even more comfortable to switch it on Clefable. But Clefable is going to just be Moonblast, Fire Blast, Stealth Rocks, and Knockoff. No Knockoff. Stealth Rocks, and I'm pretty sure, what is that move called? Not Recover, but what's the one where you break open the egg? Can't think of it right now. Why can I not think of that? It's not Moonlight either. I don't know. Soft Boiled? Yeah, there we go. Soft Boiled. So it had its own reliable recovery, because I really didn't see myself being able to wish pass too well in this game. So I just want a reliable recovery on Clefable, and then I definitely still wanted Rocks in this game, because I knew there'd be a lot of switching, and I didn't want just my team to be hindered by that. I wanted my opponent's team to be as well. And then last but definitely not least is our Rain Setter Pelipper, rocking out with the Damp Rock, which probably wasn't the best call, just because of the fact that there's so much Weather Wars in this game that it probably didn't make the most sense to bank on the fact that I'd be able to keep my weather up enough time for the Damp Rock to really make sense. So probably would have changed that to Scarf if I could redo this match. Just so that Pelipper can also threaten Excadrill, and Excadrill can't really threaten it upon a free switching into Pelipper. It can't really threaten it with a Rock Slide. Pelipper just threatens it more with a Scald. So probably one thing I would have changed with Pelipper, but overall, Damp Rock can just be Scald, Tailwind, U-Turn, Roost on Pelipper to make sure I could definitely keep it at a good amount of health with the Roost. Scald just to hopefully get some burns and hit things decently hard if Rain's up, and Hurricane obviously to kind of nuke Celebi and Mega Heracross, and then U-Turn for Switch Initiative if I so choose to go for that. But alright, that's going to be my team. As you can see, my opponent brought out Slurpluff, Haxorus, Celebi, Gigalith, Excadrill, and Vaporeon, so no Mega Heracross, no Blacephalon, and then the rest all made sense. I didn't really see Bravery being brought. I didn't see Lipod really being brought, and then there was a little bit of myself that was telling me that Zebstrika could possibly be brought. If I didn't bring Lurantis, overall I wasn't too concerned about Zebstrika because I do have the Goodra, but I still thought it could be a decently formidable threat with like Energy Ball. I'm pretty sure it gets Energy Ball. I may be wrong. No, I think it gets Grass Knot, but like Grass Knot and just electric type moves. And if my Rain wasn't up and he was able to get Sand up a lot and use Zebstrika, I thought it could be a decent bit of a threat. But overall, that's going to be the team. So let's just hop into this battle and see how everything went down. As this is a huge game for us. If we can win this game, we'd be definitely crawling right back to where we would want to be when it comes to our positioning heading into the mid-season point of this season, getting really close to the midpoint of the season. But however, I decided to just lead Heliolisk because once again, I didn't expect his Excadrill to be Scarf, and I was like, if it's Excadrill outside of Rain, I'm going for the Surf, and I'm just gonna see what happens. However, though, he leads Slurpluff, which was really interesting to me. I decided to just go for the Volt Switch and then go into my Clefable, because if this thing was just Belly Drum and it wanted to just Belly Drum turn 1, that would be really ballsy. But I was like, I'll just go into Clefable and bluff not Magic Guard, but because that's what I actually am. I am Magic Guard. Because I needed, for the Mega Heracross, I needed to be Magic Guard so that I didn't get 2-hit KO'd if I kept switching in on Stealth Rocks by Rock Blast. So that's why I went with Magic Guard instead of Unaware. But yeah, in case he was Belly Drum, could kind of bluff Unaware Clefable and maybe scare him out. Anyways, though, I try to go for a really ballsy protection right away. I've seen Hera play before, and I thought he might play on the let's just get Excadrill in right away on Clefable because there's no way he's really going to run anything for it. However, though, he does just switch into Gigalith, which also was just, as I made the play, I was like, but he'll probably just switch in his AV Gigalith, and by that damage, it looks like that was definitely not a Soul Vest Gigalith, but heavily invested in Special Defense Gigalith. So, definitely not the best play, but it's whatever. We just exchange rocks at this point, and I'm gonna switch into Lurantis here because there's no reason really not to, and it does give me a decent defensive check to this Gigalith, because I am running heavily in special defense. That still does a lot more damage than I would like, especially when you couple in the fact of the Sandstorm damage. And now, considering that Clefable didn't take any damage from the Sandstorm, he does know that I'm Magic Guard now, so we'll see if that ends up mattering at all. So he goes for the Heavy Slam, does more damage than I would like, and then he switches out his Gigalith for Haxorus, which really scared me, because if this Haxorus would have just went for a Dragon Dance now, it could have actually put a huge dam on my team. I honestly don't have that much for a Haxorus. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to give this Pokemon Poison Jab, and he's probably right that we probably did under-tier Haxorus, considering that it has Poison Jab. Like, there was no reason to give this Dragon-type Poison Jab. Either way, though, I just go for the default because I'm way too concerned with Pelipper trying to, having to switch in too much on this Haxorus. I was very concerned with, not on Haxorus, just Pelipper having to switch in too much and then rocks becoming a real issue. So here, knowing that my opponent would likely go for Poison Jab, though, I do just go into Pelipper. Unfortunately, though, he does snag a burn, though, and that was just so really annoying because of the fact that it was just like one of the first few moves that were used that had like a secondary effect, other than the Fire Blast on Gigalith, and it's just really frustrating that happened. Just the first Poison Jab you went for, it had to poison and on a Pokemon that's very vital to my game plan. Either way, though, he's going to go for that Poison Jab. I switch back into Clefable at this point, thinking if he stays in and goes for attack, he may not go for a Poison Jab again. He can because of the poison, but he may not. So I'm just going to go into Clefable, because if I can get Clefable back in and not having to switch it on a Poison Jab, then we're in a decent position here. So he goes into his Vaporeon on my Pelipper, knowing that he is probably Water Absorb, and Pelipper can't do much to it other than Hurricane, which probably is a 3 or 4 hit KO. So I just go into Clefable, set up rocks, and then I'm switching out because I know I can't do much to this thing, and I know that my Hilo-Whisk can switch in on Vaporeon every single time. If he is running a set I'm expecting that doesn't have Ice Beam, I know that it's an easy switch in every single time for me. So I go into Hilo-Whisk, and he tried to switch in his Excadrill on my Clefable, knowing that Rain is up, so that my Fire Blast won't do too much. So thinking he had a pretty good switch in, but I went into my Hilo-Whisk. I just go for the Surf, not trying to overpredict too much and go for a Volt Switch on a Volt Switch or a Hyper Voice or a Thunder on a Excadrill. So I just go for that. We continue to get a little bit of recovery from our dry skin because of the rain being up. And here I'm like, I don't really have, there's nothing I really want to switch in on this. I know that it's not going to do too much damage to me personally because I do see Selby probably being more bulky than offensive. So I just go for the Hyper Voice, knowing to do enough damage to where I could take out the next turn. He does go for a Psychic. I'm kind of like fingers crossed this doesn't do too much damage. And it actually does a good chunk, but still around the amount to where I'm comfortable with me having went for Hyper Voice still, considering that I only want Excadrill to attack when it's outspeeding threats, so Excadrill's not a defensive threat at all. So as long as it's not really getting knocked down, and as long as it's in a decent enough position to where it can still switch in on rocks a decent amount, I'm not too concerned. And it was able to take out, we do get the first knockout of the game as Hilo-Whisk is able to knock out the Stelby with Hyper Voice. So I'm like, alright, we broke down one defensive wall, let's keep working from here. So here, my opponent brings in his Gigalith on my Hilo-Whisk, knowing he could change the weather with the Sandstorm, and then he's in a much better position to take those surfs now. So I switch out. I go into Lurantis, knowing that he'd probably just go on the offensive and he wouldn't set up rocks. I go into Lurantis, and he is going to get off some solid damage off on us. And here's where I'm finally going to try to Synthesis in the Sandstorm, and it's going to do way more damage. It's not going to heal back anything practically. So there's the Synthesis, and yeah, that wasn't much at all. I would love to have gotten a lot more health back. So he's actually going to take me further down below than where I was before I went for the Synthesis. So considering that, I'm like, I pretty much just need to go on the offensive. So here I go for a
really,
Leaf Storm, and guess what? I miss it, and that actually ends up being so crucial because of the fact that that would have done enough damage to where I could have really it wouldn't have knocked this Gigalith out because of how specially defensive it is, but it would have put me not only in a position to where I'm at +2 now, so he has to switch something in on this Lurantis. And with it at +2, and he doesn't really, now that Selby's down, he doesn't have the best switch-ins for a +2 Leaf Storm. It would have also really put Gigalith in a position to where its health was really chunked, but instead I have to sack my Lurantis and just go for a defog so that Pelipper has more wiggle room later in the game. So keep that play in mind. That play ends up being so crucial later in the game, as that play would have put us in a much better position when it comes to the late game. But either way, we're going to switch in Pelipper, because not only can we change the weather, we can easily threaten out this Gigalith. And I'm just going to Roost here because rocks aren't up. They might get put up later. My Pelipper is decently weakened, and I am poisoned as well. So this is a perfect time, me knowing that he'll probably go into Vaporeon, just roost up and then switch into Heliolisk, because it's just my every time switch in. Instead though, I did go for a U-turn just to scout if he would possibly want to go for Ice Beam. I wanted to make sure I didn't just get Ice Beamed on the switch in, as I'm not positive still yet that he has like Toxic or something else, and not or Toxic, Heal Bell, some type of passive move, and not Ice Beam. So I went for the U-turn. We get him with Heliolisk for free, as he does throw up the Wish. And now we're going to see what exactly my opponent wants to bring in here, because I'm pretty sure I just Volt Switch, and he does just go back into Masto, which is going to be the Gigalith again. So this is why this is so crucial, because you will see how much damage this gets off on this. Oh, well, I actually went for the Thunder and missed it, so it's not a huge deal. I was just hoping I would be able to actually hit the Thunder, because I would have done so much damage, and I knew that the Wish was coming, so I was hoping to just be able to get off a good amount of damage. But he's able to continue to use this Gigalith as a huge... I don't know why I always do that, start messing with my shirt while I'm talking about battles. But anyways, he's able to use his Heliolisk as such a... I mean, not his Heliolisk, his Gigalith. He's able to use his Gigalith as such a good defensive switch into to my team, and it's so frustrating and aggravating because of the fact that I should have had a Leaf Storm off on this Pokemon already. I should have been in a much better position. So it's just super frustrating. But either way here, he's going to switch out his Gigalith again. Me knowing that, I just go for a Roost again, as he was able to easily call my Pelipper switch in, which is perfectly fine. I have to play this that predictable. I don't really have better switch-ins for the Gigalith at all. I'm not going to switch in Kingdra and just risk getting damage off on Kingdra that it doesn't need to be taking. And Pelipper, I do know I can scare out and at least Roost back up with. So that's what I went for. Honestly, should have probably Roosted again here, but I was too concerned with wanting to really just like actually get some like solid momentum off on this Vaporeon. And here he's actually going to reveal... I don't know. Woo, my capture card's freaking out. Alright, it's chilled out. But either way, he's going to reveal some type of hidden power. I have no clue what hidden power that was. Literally still right now I have no clue what that was. So he's actually going to reveal that he doesn't have Protect. He's Wish, Hidden Power, Scald, and Toxic. Not Roost, Wish, Hidden Power, Scald, and Toxic. And I am Hydration Goodra, because I 100% expected this scenario where he would be running Toxic on Vaporeon. I 100% expected it from my Goodra, as Goodra is just a really good switch in for the Vaporeon, especially if it lacks Ice Beam. So, saw that coming, put hydration on Gudra specifically for that, especially because I didn't see Celebi as a big enough threat to where I needed to run whatever the grass type ability on Gudra is, where it just tanks grass type moves. I can't think of it right now. Anyways, though, he's going to switch in his Slurpluff, which has a decent bit of special defense investment considering it was able to tank that Thunder pretty nicely. And I do still have offensive investment on my Gudra. I actually am modest nature with just a little bit of investment because I'm just very specially bulky, and an Assault Vest allows me to do that pretty easily to where I don't have to heavily invest in it. So either way, though, he's going to get his, go for a Dazzling Gleam with a Slurpluff, and then he's going to get his Extra Gel finally in on my Clefable like he's been wanting to do. I just went for the Stealth Rocks, though, knowing that we're switching way too much, and I need some type of edge on him, and if I'm able to make his team have to switch around a lot more due to Stealth Rocks, and I can maybe get in a good position. However, though, this puts me in a very tight spot considering that Lurantis had went down. Once again, I would still have my Lurantis if it wasn't for the fact that I missed that Leaf Storm as well. But either way, though, he's going to be able to get off an Iron Head and an Earthquake, and I will take out my Gudra because I'm way more specially invested than I am physically. And I knew that Gudra, I didn't have a switch in. I knew I lacked a switch in into this at this point. Here, I'm just going to go into Kingdra because I didn't want to continue to just be super predictable, and I knew that this may be an opportunity that I can maybe get the Yawn off on Vaporeon and put this to sleep, so that's not so much of a nuisance as it's been so far. With just being able to switch in on my offensive threats, my Pokemon that can deal a lot of damage that aren't Heliolisk. So I go for the Yawn, and here I go for the Surf, 100% expecting him to do some type of switch out, but my opponent makes the correct call here. Hera makes the correct call and just goes for a Toxic and allows his Vaporeon to get put to sleep, which was a smart play. At this point, we are further in the match, and my Toxic on this is more important than his Vaporeon going to sleep. So he makes a good play here. Applause to him for that play, and he's going to even get a turn of sleep because of the fact that I am still in with Kingdra, and him knowing that he can take pretty much any hit from Kingdra pretty well. Here, though, I am going to finally get in with my Heliolisk, and he is going to switch out now, and he's going to go out to Sherry and finally sack Sherry. So this will be the end of Sherry. I'm pretty sure I Surf. Let's go for a Surf. No, I just Volt Switch. So he's actually going to get the initiative from this because I have to go into something before he switches in his next Pokemon since his Slurpluff fainted. So Hilo was taking some lifesteal, it's taking out Celebi, and now has taken out Slurpluff as well. I go into my Pelipper, as everything else is just baited a Pokemon in too easily for my opponent. Everything other than Heliolisk pretty much baits something in. So my opponent is going to bring in the Excadrill, so here's where I would have preferred to have been Scarf, because this would not have been a smart play by my opponent if I was Scarf, because if I was Scarf I could have invested a lot more in special attack, and then I could have went for a modest Scald in Rain against my opponent's Excadrill, and probably taken it out. So that wouldn't have been a good play at all by him, so that's where I would have preferred to have not been the Damp Rock set. As you guys have kind of seen, Rain has in nowhere stayed up long enough for the Damp Rock to have been that useful. Here, though, I am going to predict the fact that he will switch out into the Vaporeon on my Heliolisk. So I do double into on my Kingdra. He would switch out into Vaporeon. So I double into Heliolisk, expecting that, and get Heliolisk into a pretty good position. He's going to make another good play and just stay in with this Vaporeon instead of switching out, which is unfortunate because he will get a Toxic now off on my Heliolisk as well. I feel like I was down at this point and needed to make plays like that, but he had no reason actually to switch in that Gigalith at this point. So just a not too wise play on my end. I should have just went for the Volt Switch or went for Thunder and just let it be. I did not, though, and here I still expected him to switch out, so instead of going for Thunder, I actually went for his Volt Switch because I don't want to miss another Thunder if my opponent goes into his Gigalith. But him 100% really realizing that his win con is that Gigalith now, he makes the correct choice and doesn't switch it in, so props to Hera for that. but just really frustrating because all these mind games with Vaporeon would have 100% not have been as bad if I would have got that Leaf Storm off on that Gigalith on that turn that I 100% just had it in a perfect position to get solid damage off, and I just wasn't able to because of the fact that that my Leaf Storm had to miss. And obviously it's an inaccurate move. It's just unfortunate because there was so much momentum in that play, as pretty much both of us realized this game was going to come down to who was able to keep their Weather Setter and their Weather Abuser alive longer. And that really put him in a much better position to keep his alive longer than mine. So, however, we're going to get in with our Heliolisk on the Gigalith. I'm just going to go for a Volt Switch. Not much else I can really do at this point. Go back into my Pelipper, and knowing that he will likely still go for a Rock Slide, I really don't have any other switching now. I need Clefable so that Haxorus doesn't sweep my team. I need Kingdra so that I actually have a Rain Abuser. And that's pretty much it, as I think I only have those 4 at this point in the game. Yeah, as Lurantis and Goodra both went down. So we're gonna go into Neptune, see what we can do here. This is actually a bad play though. This was another bad play on my end because of the fact that Heliolisk has Surf for a reason. So all I did was end up having to switch out. I was frustrated at this point, and I just went into my Kingdra because of my frustrations. So all I did here was just waste a turn for no apparent reason. I could have gotten with Heliolisk, predicted this Vaporeon to come in, and then and went for either Volt Switch or Thunder. Got off heaps of damage. Probably would have just went for a Thunder, and then when Gigalith comes back in, that Volt Switch will kill now. But yeah, so then when Gigalith comes back in, I do have a Life Orb Surf waiting for it. I know it still means that he's going to be able to get up Sand for his Excadrill, and I'm still likely going to lose. But still, would have just put me in a better spot overall though. Either way though, we will finally take out the Vaporeon with our Heliolisk, and here is where my opponent will finally go into their Gigalith to reset up Sand. Set up Sand practically for the last time. Here I know that my play is to stall out this Gigalith. I have to stall out Sand from this Gigalith, and if I'm able to do it, if I'm able to stall out Sand long enough to where Excadrill doesn't get in, I can actually still win this game. But my Hera, being a good battler, he brought Explosion to ensure that not only does he take out my Kingdra, he also just gets Gigalith off of the field, even if it means sacrificing it, because at this point all he really needs to do is get Excadrill in with Sand up, and he can win this game. I go into Clefable knowing I could take at least one Iron Head, and pretty much at this point I have to get a Fire Blast crit, and I still have a chance of winning this game, because if I get a Fire Blast crit, that will knock out this Excadrill, and obviously I need to not be flinched as well. But I end up missing the Fire Blast, which obviously just kind of throws more salt into the wound, as it's like I already needed a crit. Like, he could have at least let me hit the attack. But either way though, if I would have been able to get a Fire Blast crit, I would have taken out this Excadrill, and then my opponent wouldn't have been able to set up on the Clefable with the Haxorus because Moonblast would have done too much damage. And then if he just attacked my Clefable, Heliolisk would have been able to come in and get off a lot of damage on Haxorus. Can ensure that it would have taken it out, but it still would have put me in a position where I at least had a chance to possibly still win this game. However, though that is going to be a game, we are going to lose a 2-0 to Hera and his SL Banefica. Very, very close game though, I feel still, because I feel like there were still a lot of plays that I have to clean up. I didn't need to start over predicting with the Vaporeon, even though like I was behind in the game. There was no need to start really over predicting with the Vaporeon because it just put my opponent in that much more solid a position. And overall, the Leaf Storm play, just still it's sitting there because I know that without Leaf Storm missing there, I wouldn't have started over predicting on the Vaporeon, because I wouldn't have been predicting Gigalith to come in all those times, because of the fact that it would have been so weakened. I would have known that he would have to play it so much differently, and he wouldn't have just been able to switch it in so many other times throughout that game. And once again, he still would have had to switch something in on a +2 Loranthus at that point. And I did have hidden power flying for the Hera cross, but that still would have done good damage to the Celebi as well. So I think Celebi was actually down already at that point, so I would have done good damage to whatever actually switched in. So just so unfortunate that we missed the most crucial attack of the game is the one that we missed. And it wasn't the Fire Blast. It was that Leaf Storm on the Gigalith would have put us just in a. This game would have played so much differently, and I personally think we would have likely won this game with that Leaf Storm off on Gigalith, because it would have done so much damage to where he wouldn't have been able to use it as a defensive pivot for his team, and more importantly, I would have been if I could keep it off the field. That means that I have my rain up more, which means that that's more usage for Kingdra. It would have just changed the entire dynamic of that game if I was able to hit that Leaf Storm. And prior to looking back at this game, I thought it was just my plays. But now that I'm actually looking back at it with you guys, I realize how crucial the Leaf Storm was as well. But either way, that's Pokemon. That's the game we played. Things like that happen. I'm hoping that in our next battle against, or if we play Hera again, hopefully we can play better, and we can bring some more effective sets and just give him even a better fight for his money, as there's definitely was still lots of things that we could clean up in this game. Either way, those guys, I'm actually not too down on my play in this one at all. I feel like every single game up until this game I've actually played pretty poorly. This game still had a lot that can be cleaned up, but I still feel like overall though I'm content with how I played this game. Could have been better in a lot of areas, but overall I'm content that if I didn't miss that attack, I still feel like we would have won that game. And obviously I don't want to bank on one attack hitting for me to have won a game, but considering that, I feel alright with our play in this game, and I feel like we're still getting back on the path to where we want to be with League format, because honestly I'm still pretty rusty. I hadn't played League format in months on months due to the break I had since the Indigo Battle League, so there's still some rust that we're still getting off. Even though it's week 5, there's still rust that we're getting off. We're still getting acquainted to the different Pokemon we're using here, and we'll have it all figured out by the time that we get further into the season, and hopefully we are in a position where we are competing for playoffs, because we will have it figured out at that point. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the battle. Definitely check out Hera's side of the battle if you haven't already, as his went up actually on Sunday when it was supposed to. Mine's unfortunately didn't go up on Sunday because I spent some time with my girlfriend's dad, where we actually went to a brewery. I drank too many beers to be able to record for you guys. I literally was laying down thinking, oh, I wish I was able to record right now. Oh, I wish I was able to record right now, but I absolutely cannot. So that's how that went. And I should have definitely, I knew that I was going to the brewery with him that day, so I should have just did it a couple days beforehand. Other things kind of fell on my lap, as well as me just wanting to relax. I'm sorry for the procrastination. I'll get it all fixed, and we'll be back on track with everything, as well as some other series that I really, other stuff on the channel that I really want to get back in flowing and going on the channel. I appreciate you guys supporting me, that watch these videos and that support the channel in any way though. I'll see you guys in the next UBL battle. Hope you enjoyed this one. For now though, it's Token signing out. Peace.